Great to see you.
Thank you very much.
So for those of you who remember Carole, she's a couple and family therapist. I believe you have your own practice and you also work with Homewood Health Solutions because you
Yeah.
helped us with that really great mental health webinar.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was great being here and having those questions and really just getting to know. That was a time when really everything was so busy. And so it was great to connect with people here.
Oh, it's great, and it's great that you're back because we have a lot of questions. So one of the themes that I'm finding is we're 6 months in, and where we were 6 months ago versus today, we have so many different questions. You know, when all of this first started, the questions that were on our mind were, you know, what is this virus? How is it transmitted? What does isolation and quarantine mean? Yeah.
Yes.
And on a positive note, one of the things you and I talked about as we were prepping for this is we survived it. Like we're
We
here.
made it. We made it. And we learned so much from that that I really want people to be encouraged that in the next phase, you're going to be boring. You're going to be taking some of that through with you. So it's going to be key.
Absolutely. But now when you fast forward to 6 months now, like we have a whole new set, like we've changed as individuals and as a society. And there are so many things that we never, just weren't on our minds to the same extent that they were before, you know, and one of the things I want to talk to you about specifically is diversity and inclusion and racism. And, you know, we're grieving again with Jacob Blake and the incident that happened on Sunday. And Carole, I watched a clip from you on CBC back in June, and well done and kudos to you because that must have been a very difficult interview. And we're going to share it with all of you because you really help parents how you can talk to your children in all of this. So we'll make sure that we share this clip with everyone. But the first question I want to ask you is how do we navigate and how do we continue to keep top of mind these important conversations such as diversity, inclusion, and racism within our communities, within our workplace, and with our children?
I think the most important piece is when we think of any of them, whether it's racism or any of these difficult subject matters, it has a way of dividing us. And so what we're seeing now is that it's also having a way to bring us together. Just the way we've kind of been able to get through COVID is kind of what I'm encouraging people to do. Keep the conversation going, being more curious, being more open. We know that when we have diverse communities, we do better as organizations. So the idea is that we want to continue to have these conversations, open up the dialogue. Don't be afraid. I think what the most important piece around just recognizing that when we think about these topics, we tend to kind of want to move in a direction that's, okay, maybe it's not the best way to approach it. Be curious, put your thoughts out there, offer some support. I think that's the most important thing. As a community, we want to stay together. We want to have these discussions so that we can grow and learn about what the next steps are. It's not all about us, it's for the future. And that to me is what's really kind of exciting. It's how we're going to get through COVID, and that's going to be helpful for the future. How we're going to deal with racism and inclusion, it's going to be better for the future. So just thinking in that way helps us to be more in a comfortable place to move in a direction of growth.
Absolutely. And one of the things you talk about in the video is modeling and the importance of modeling for your children and modeling positive behaviors. Maybe you could just share a little bit about that, again, specifically with racism and the recent events that were, you know, that are upon us again.
So the most important thing is when we see these images or we're hearing about these stories, there's going to be emotions that are going to come up. And that when we have them, we don't want to push them back down. I say that to my clients all the time. I'm like, don't be pushing those things back down. Having those emotions come up, really recognize that you can even turn to your child and say, here we go again. This is a challenging, moment, recognizing that your facial expressions, the things that you say, they're always watching us. It's so important to kind of recognize when you do share that, what do we want to do? What can we do as a family? What do you think about these, this particular topic, age appropriate, of course, and just recognizing that it's just a discussion that needs to begin and we normalize it. And it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel upset. Racism has a way of causing shame. And that's why it's so hard to have this discussion, whether it's Black or Brown families, they feel shame. And in some cases, even on the outside as well, Caucasian families may feel a little bit of shame or confusion. And that's okay. We're all in different levels and we're all in that together, muddling around, and we just take our parts and we kind of figure out what role do we want to play? How do we start to play, to be more intentional about these conversations?
Well, that's great. And I think I was sharing with you, we just kicked off our diversity and inclusion project, and we started with that sharing. You know, we brought in almost 30 people right across the province, and we all shared our different perspectives and where we're at in our journey. And you know, it was a very emotive conversation. And I think, you know, what I'm hearing from you is we need to not only have this discussion as a team, we need to have it on these VLCs. We need to have it within our departments and our team meetings, because these events they're affecting all of us. And I agree, we need to talk about them.
Mhm. Because when we know it's there, you know, Black people, Black and Brown people, we have these discussions. We're feeling it. So the idea is that now I want to be able to bring it to my workplace and be like, yeah, it's not feeling so great. Let's figure out how can we sort of maneuver. What are the things that we can do so that we're all kind of feeling safe in our work environments and in our friendships and relationships.
And I think I love that word, because that's one of the things I feel everyone should feel safe and should feel welcome. And it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we all feel safe. So,
Mhm.
so that's a good message for all of us to take from that.
Absolutely.
Speaking of safe, the next big topic that's on a lot of people's minds is the schools.
Mhm.
You know, every day in the media, even just before we started this VLC, there's more announcements, which is great. There's more funding that's coming,
That's right.
but there's so much anxiety out there with parents and with kids. And, you know, what type of advice would you give to parents where the kids are probably nervous going back to school? So they have their own anxieties, the parents, and the children have their anxieties. So what's your advice to them?
I really want people to start to kind of tune in, anchor into their own emotions. I always want parents to recognize that first, again, remodeling, check in with yourself, see what's happening. Be aware that you're able to hold space for your child. Again, we've gotten much better at regulating our emotions from COVID. We are aware of how to express them. So first, I hope people are coming in with some confidence. We've all come a long way, right? And so how
We
we
have.
spend time, yeah, how we,
Congratulations to us.
everyone, absolutely, we've come a long way. And so it's really important that we help our kids to, as well, to anchor. And then one of the ways that we do that is that we offer them as much information or as little that you think they can handle in the moment. And that we always go back to safety, right? We're always giving them that message that safety is key, and recognizing that when we can offer that first to ourselves, you know, the whole piece of putting on your mask first, making sure that you're grounded, you know, kind of write some reasons why, you know, you might be feeling fear as a parent, you know, making sure that you kind of sort of list reasons why you know, you might be feeling what is happening in the moment is difficult to handle, and that's okay. All of this is part of the process, but you want to make sure that you let them know that you care for them, you're responsible, you're talking to the teachers, everything's going to go well. And so you just kind of manage the safety aspect of every conversation so that that dance is comfortable, so that they're feeling comfortable in their space. And that's really what we're trying to do, is offer them some safety, offer them some information that will allow them to sort of navigate. And as time progresses, know there's more to come.
Yep, absolutely. You know, one of the things you talk about is normalizing. You know, how can parents help normalize what it's going to look like? So children are now going to be wearing a mask all day long. If they're taking a bus, they're going to have an assigned seat. Like, it's going to be different. So what are some things that parents can do to help normalize these experiences for their children?
First, recognize that feelings are not facts, right? So we're all going to have feelings, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything goes downhill from there. So we're going to be normalizing our feelings in terms of, hey, son, daughter, Josh, whoever, this is going to be difficult. And I'm going to be, communicating regularly. Be careful as well as of your facial expressions, kind of the words that you're using. Sometimes we think our kids aren't listening. They're always listening. They're always listening. And so just be mindful of those things. And, when you do walk them through the process, again, tone is everything, volume is everything. You might be sitting in a different place, having these discussions early enough. Don't kind of, you want to take bits and pieces. The other piece is you don't want to use the week to kind of offer them everything. Do some nice bits and pieces of conversations. What are your thoughts about that? If you know your child, your child best. If they like to have a say, Mom, I'm scared, I'm concerned. Yeah, that makes sense. What else is on your mind? So making room for that, because as we start to give them the rundown, they're going to be taking it all in, giving them the time to sort of think through, because like adults, they need time as well too to sift through everything that you've said, and even checking back up with them. So what are your thoughts about what we talked about? What did you think about that? And so masks are going to keep you safe, but so am I, and I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of you. So let me take care of that as the adult, and you can go to school and have fun. And I think one thing that kind of came up today, I was talking to someone, kids want to go back. Kids kind of want to go back, and it's good for their mental health as well too. But we want to manage the feelings that they're kind of feeling as well. Worry that we go too far into the future, right? Or too far into the past, and that it is very hard to even hear or know what's going on. Because to be honest, as I was sharing, even the school boards don't know, even the teachers aren't sure, right? And so it makes sense that people are uncertain of what's next. But just recognizing, staying grounded in the present is the key. What can I do now? What solutions can I solve right now? And that's all we can do in the moment.
Absolutely. One of the questions I think a lot of parents have is how honest should they be with their children about the pandemic? Because it's scary. And, while we do know a lot more about the virus than we did in the past, there's still a lot of uncertainties with it. And I'm sure a lot of children are asking, like, if their friends aren't going back to school because they're going to do virtual and they are, like, how do parents explain that?
Mhm. I think that it's important that first, I always tell parents, I can give you suggestions, but again, you know your child's best. If that you have to be mindful of how they've been doing thus far. And if the summer has allowed them to really kind of ground themselves and kind of feel more comfortable, that's great. So I think it's important that you recognize, so we are going back to school. If you've decided that you're sending your child back, or you know of a friend or a neighbor that won't be, just explain to them, all parents are making decisions right now. This is what we've decided. And I think at the end of it, kids need to know that you're proud of them, that you're listening, that you are taking it one step at a time. You don't have to be the pro, right? And so I think that we start getting into lots of worry when we think we have to have all the answers for our children. A model that, guess what? I'm figuring this out, but I have you again, and that it's okay for you to know that we're taking it day by day, because that's gonna be the way we stay the safest, is day by day, and that's what I'm gonna be doing, and we can do this together. So they need to know that you're teammates in this. And I do a lot of couple therapy, and that's what I tell them. Got to be teammates in this. It's hard, it's challenging, but you want to be teammates through the process, and let the kids know that we're in this together.
Well, that's really great advice. One other question that's come in on a similar note is people are feeling anxieties about their choice, either with family members or with their social circles, of sending them back versus not. So, what advice do you have to them in being honest with their choices, and how much do you disclose?
Right. We'll start early. Start early and start thinking about, the questions are coming in. You know who it's coming from. Which in-law it's going to come from. Just get prepared, right? Again, I said it from the beginning. We want to ground ourselves. We want to ground ourselves for that conversation. I sometimes do, exercises that I let people kind of think through, envision what might happen. How do you want this conversation to go, right? Remember, you are in control of the conversation. How much, again, how little you share, just like with your kids, you're in charge of that. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that boundaries, right? So if you've decided you're going to end or talk about A, B, and C, once you've had that discussion about, yes, they're going back, and we'll keep an eye on things, point final, right? So this is very important, right? And so we need to figure out what our boundaries are, and if that means that's where it's going to end, that's where it is going to end, and that it helps you so that you don't end up being in a spiral for the rest of the day. So I recommend for people to think through what they want to respond, how much they want to respond. Think of that early. Worry less about what people think. It's a hard one, but really we have to try and worry less about those things. And so one way that for us to do that is just to accept where we are with it. Once we are good with how we are going to respond, that helps us. Make sure you have a trusting friend, someone that you can chat with afterwards or around that time, and making choices, again, that pleases us. So when we worry less about what people are thinking, then we are in a place where we can offer that and really then put some distance from that conversation, and just be respectful of what you're going to be saying to them, and also listening to their hearts, because in reality I think also we're all worried, and just kind of give some space for what they're kind of going to share back with you.
Right. I think that's great advice. Set your boundaries and plan what you want to say and how much you want to say in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other thing that's on a lot of people's minds is, as everyone was working over the summer in their bubbles, grandparents have been very involved. And, you know, I think a lot of parents, as they send kids back to school, might need to set boundaries now with grandparents, and, you know, the hugs that they were getting before might not happen. So how do you have those conversations both with the grandparents and with the kids? Because that's a change. They can't hug their grandparents again, potentially.
Yes, exactly. The first thing I want people to keep in mind is we've been through a lot. I'm saying that again. And in that there is grief, there is loss, there, we can have a whole separate conversation on that, but just that grief is still happening for a lot of us, and that be kind with yourself, even when you have this discussion, letting the grandparent know that, mom and dad, I want you to be safe. It's important for you to be safe. And you're sharing the same message with your child, in that I know that this is tough, right? This has been life changing. There's no doubt about it. And so that we are mourning losses, but that the same thing that we've had to go through, we're boring again, but we were able to hug grandma and grandma at some point. So it's going to come again, right? We're always looking towards the future. Right now, we need to continue to be safe. So there's going to be some changes. And I know that hurts. I know that's hard to kind of make sense of on the inside, and that we're going to get to a place where things are going to change again. And we're excited about that. But until then, this is what we've planned to do. And again, same thing when you're having the discussion with your parent or your parent-in-law or whatnot, you're going to be saying the same thing. We want you to be safe. This is really hard on all of us. And but we're going to put some things in place. We're going to do the social calls and stuff like that, like we've been doing before. But know that this is for your safety.
No, that's great. I think that those are all really key messages as we navigate these tough conversations. Another thing people are having a tough time navigating is the guilt. And there's guilt on so many different levels. I mean, I know some parents are feeling guilty for sending their kids back because they have to go back to work. And it's, the fall, it tends to be flu season as well. And there's all this talk of, a potential second wave. And I know some MPAC parents actually feel guilty because they have a bit more flexibility than maybe other people in their social circles. So there's guilt that a lot of people are feeling. So how do you help work through that guilt, and what are some strategies?
I think that it's going to be important for people to really practice mindful thinking. why are you doing the things that you're doing? What are you most grateful for the time that you have? And why I'm kind of trying to push people outside of their mindset of what are you going to do now? What's going to be your response? Because at the end of the day, everyone sets the rules for their own home. Everyone, what I do in my home is not what my neighbors are going to do. And so that's totally okay. And that the reason why I've decided to, I've accepted it. I am grateful for the situation that I'm in, right? That I can have my kids at home, or that it's best for them to go. Again, I know my kids best. And just, being aware that you're doing the work for feedback. So if things change, you're ready to make that adjustment. That what I really want people to do is that it's important, we don't want shame and guilt to take over, because it then puts us in a place where we feel like we're not capable of doing anything, right? And so you have a choice, or choices might be limited. That's okay. What's your situation? Keep your eye. My mom used to say that, keep your eye on your situation. Don't look at your neighbor. So just keep your eye on your situation. You're doing the best actions for your family. Watch what's happening in your household, and know that, yeah, it's true. There's going to be some concern and what are people going to think? But again, same sort of thing. We want to keep our eyes on what's happening here right now, and be aware of the language that you're using as well. That self-talk that gets in the way sometimes, that can also feed that guilt. Be mindful of that within yourself, that you are doing the best that you can do, and you continue to do that. We are all doing the best that we can do.
And I would take that back to what we've done as an organization. We didn't have all the answers when this started.
Mhm.
We took all the information that we had, and we made the best decision that we could. And then we moved forward, and we always said we're in it together. So I think this is another example of everyone's got to take all the information and then you have to make a decision and then move forward from there. And you can always adjust,
Mhm.
right? Just like we've had to adjust. I think the schools will need to adjust, and as parents, I assume they may need to adjust as well if it's not working for them.
Absolutely. And know that door is open to you. You can, adjust. You may change your mind. That's okay as well too. What you're
Mm.
doing is you're listening to that message. You're listening to your heart. You're being open.
Yeah, it's a period where there are no right answers or playbook for
Nope.
this.
Never been here before, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and we've
Absolutely.
made it this far, so we're doing well.
And be kind to yourself. Be kind. I know it's easier said than done, but that self-compassion piece is so key.
Yeah. Carol, what about the teachers? The teachers must have their own anxiety in all of this. What can the parents do to support them? Because the teachers, they don't have all the answers. They need to protect the kids in the classroom, and they're likely parents as well. So how can people support the teachers in this process?
It's a great question. Check in on your teachers. Check in on your teachers. Be mindful of the questions that you're asking them, and the way in which you're asking them, because again, they don't know. They don't know. I talk to many teachers often, to be honest, and they are very stressed out. Teachers, like some of us, love structure, and right now, there is none. There's limited. And so they are struggling with this as much as we probably know. So just checking in on them, seeing how they're doing, light touch, just seeing how things are, and being mindful of the way in which you're kind of having conversations with them as well too, that you're not expecting them to have all the answers as well. Know that in some ways they don't know. They know the same steps that we know as well.
Mm. What about the other side? We've talked a lot about the stresses of sending your kids back to
Mhm,
school.
mhm.
What about the parents who are going to make the decision not to do that and opt for the virtual? They're going to be back to where we were sort of pre-summer, where they're
All
going to be juggling work, homeschooling, social, like lack of socialization and so on. What advice do you have for those parents?
Absolutely. First, I really want people to be patient with themselves. They probably created a good plan, And so I really want them to kind of recognize, take a deep breath, right? Take a deep breath, make sure you've put in place breaks that are going to be helpful. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt, and also recognize that your kids, I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, recognize that your children have grown up, have aged through this. And I mean, I don't mean age, but really they have kind of there's a bit of a maturity that's happened with them, and that recognize that you've given them some tools over these last few months that they can actually borrow from you and are aware of. So first, kudos for that. And it happened because of the way things kind of unfolded. So recognize that you can still play the role, be the supportive person, set the ground rules, offer them respect around what they can do. Kids love to, be aware of the things that they can do, but also within yourself. There's only so much you can do, and that you don't want to be aware of the irrational thoughts that come in, that I have to know the answer. If I ignore that, that's a problem. I can't see me get upset or nervous over this. That sort of irrational thinking puts us in the fight or flight, and it's just, we're not the people we want to be. So just be mindful of the ways, again, that you're talking to yourself. The irrational thoughts put us in a very tight place, and it doesn't allow us to kind of maneuver with things and offer the support to your son or daughter, and also to yourself.
Well, that's great. Before we wrap up sort of the school piece, I want to see, Carla, if there's any questions that have come in on the line that maybe Carole can address.
No questions right now, but there is a sentiment of being a little worried now. I guess Ford made an announcement earlier today that I'll have to go listen to, but a little more worry now due to sending kids back, and people and families not having to disclose whether or not parents or siblings of the students potentially might, if they have COVID, they don't necessarily have to tell the schools. So that's going to bring a little bit of worry for parents for sure. And a comment that an employee shared with us was, the secret to life is to care about people while not caring about what they think. And Carole, this goes back to a comment that you made earlier. And it's a very, very thoughtful way to be, I think, something I'll try to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good point. We have so much to worry about. If we have to worry about what other people think on top of it all, there's only so much we can take.
It's too heavy. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to move now to the workplace. So we are opening our offices September 14th.
Mm-hmm.
It's voluntary, so you don't have to go to the office if you don't want to. We're telling everyone that your default position is we're still going to work from home till the end of the year, and that gives everyone the flexibility. But some people want to go back to the office for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's because they feel the equipment there is better, or maybe they're having trouble, balancing, the work life at home. So whatever your reason is, that's fine. But one of the things that is going to be different as we enter the office is once all these protocols are in place, we're wearing masks as we're going down the hallways. You can only walk in a certain direction, and not everyone is going to feel comfortable engaging with other people. So how can we navigate that? Because I may go into the office one day and someone who I would normally dialogue with is not going to feel comfortable dialoguing for whatever reason. And so, not to take that personal, but how do we navigate that people are actually going to be potentially a little bit different than how we left off in March?
I think that we really need to start from a place of things are going to be different, and that difference may mean that, that everyone hopefully has come up with a plan upon returning. This is how they want to kind of navigate their space. So we want to be respectful of that. My plan is not going to be your plan, and that it's important that if you notice people are a little bit more timid or a little bit more distant, we're respectful of that. So that whether that's a quick hi with the hand and keep moving, that's important. We want to be aware that we don't know how to navigate. So it will be a day by day, but we still want to be friendly. We still want to be considerate of other people's situations. We want to be humble. So that means, we are active in recognizing that everyone is different, and that we want to be gentle with one another. Because as we are gentle, then we can actually start to come from a place of understanding. And so we're not on guard. Okay, we're not expecting everyone to be who we are, but we are open, and we're receiving. And so those are some things that I'm going to encourage people to do, that we're receiving, we're able to allow people to navigate the best way that they feel comfortable. And we have to be patient with that process, because it may even change for ourselves, right, as time progresses.
How do we set our own boundaries? Like if I'm not comfortable,
Mhm.
getting too close or having those dialogues, like how do I set my own boundaries?
So it's important that we have those conversations early. So if there's a way that we can kind of communicate that, right now I've decided X, Y, and Z, because it's best for me, it's best for my family. So I think it's important for us to, again, navigate in a way that feels most authentic to us, and that when we set boundaries, boundaries are just ways for us to be safe in relationships. That's really all it is. And it's that when we do create boundaries, we can change them too. We
Hmm.
can we can always recognize that right now I realize maybe that was a little bit too far. Maybe I can kind of pull that back, and you have the freedom and the choice to do that. So I think the main thing is that we recognize that we are providing ourselves with forgiveness to edit, and that it's, boundaries are fine, and that we find the best way to communicate that with people that feels most authentic to us, whether that's sending an email, I saw you today, don't think anything of it, I'm just, trying to figure out my way through this. Know that I saw you, I had my eye on you, and I hope all is well. And so that, again, we give each other space through that transition.
That's a great tip. And just like we spoke a few minutes ago about not letting other people judge you or feel judged. How do we not personalize some of these situations that we may find ourselves in?
Hmm. And so it's so funny. I have this conversation often with many of my clients, in that we have to be aware of our own thinking, right? And so when we're aware of our own thinking, it helps us to navigate. So sometimes we need to be aware of, maybe there's some, negative thinking that might get in the way, and how do we be kind with that process? So I think it's important that we don't get too stuck. So one thing that I say is, that are we kind of getting into that all or nothing thinking, where things have to be a particular way for it to be perfect? We don't know what that is yet. We don't know what that perfect or particular thing will be. So just to recognize that, and kind of focus on the things that you can control. Focus on, are you kind of being quite negative about this, or are you labeling yourself or labeling others? So paying close attention to our thinking patterns, so that we can pull ourselves into not getting into a spiral. And it's easier sometimes versus other times to slow down our thinking, sort of like, oh, I think that they think this about me, and that, actually they're probably trying to get back to their work spot, and they're not thinking about you at all. But I mean, yes, pulling ourselves out of that, because what we know is at times it pulls us into other areas, and we're off to the races. So just kind of slowing our thought process down, and so that we can kind of be aware of what's happening for us.
It's great advice. And I read this the other day, that your thoughts become your words and your words become your actions. And so I love that, trying to slow down the thinking and be aware of what you're thinking, because you tend to reflect that later.
Hmm. And you recognize that you were probably wrong. You probably didn't have all the facts. And that we're all trying to do, again, we're all trying to do the best job. Are there things that you miss, Nicole, in particular?
There are things that I miss. I miss a more balanced routine. I mean, I think I've made this work for the most part, and I've tried as much as I can in the summer to get out, and I've made new routines. But I miss all of you that I would normally see in person, and I do miss going to the office. But I don't miss it every day. One thing that I've had in my own reflection is like we were all, full steam ahead. Like we were go, 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 go. And I don't think until this pandemic happened, we realized how go, go, go we were. And so, yeah, like if I look at myself, I think I've got a much more of a balance now that I like. And, you know, I don't want to necessarily give it up. Like I was at the gym, many times a week. And one of the questions I've had with a couple people is, I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to the gym because I've actually made up my own home workout
That's
that I quite enjoy. And I save an hour a day and in the different commuting times. So yeah, so it's definitely, I definitely think I'm going to do the best that I can to create my own new normal and keep some balance in my life. But I do want a little bit more out, a little bit more socialization and interaction.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have missed that. That interaction is so key.
What about you?
I got a bike. I love spinning.
Okay.
So I really missed going to the gym and doing, the classes where everyone's yelling. La, la, la. So I got myself a bike and I'm loving it. I'm loving biking around my community and I'm really enjoying it. And I do miss spinning a little, but I just love biking. I'm enjoying it. And I mean, it's the same thing, not maybe as fast in that, but I'm finding trails and I'm finding things around. So it's been nice. It's been nice to be able to manage, like you're saying, my time and balance and being intentional and recognizing that I was go, go, go. And many of the organizations that I've done workshops with, that's what our conversations was around, like work-life balance, and so we really got a chance to put a halt on things and help us to kind of manage what we want out of this. And a lot of good reflection has come out of COVID as well. So there are some positives for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I encourage everyone to reflect on, what have you gotten out of this that you don't want to lose, and what is it that you miss that you want to go back to? I think it's a really powerful thing. And then you can chart your own course as you go forward.
That's right. That's right.
Carole, one of the questions that's come up from staff is we're going to continue in this virtual world a little bit longer, and one of the things that is people are wondering about is how do they navigate their career and career advancement if they're not in the office and having those dialogue, whether it be with your manager or maybe other people in the office that they wouldn't normally see, like in this new virtual world. How do people take charge of their careers and continue to move them forward?
I think this is a great question. Not everyone feels comfortable, sort of navigating the workplace this way. But one thing that I encourage people to do is just have a plan, usually, in terms of what do you want to get out of this time? What is the shift that you're looking for in your career? A lot of the coaching that I do, I encourage people to kind of keep in mind, we stick with 90 days. You have 90 days. What's one thing that you want to do? What are some things that you want to do to take those 90 days apart? Recognize that the challenge is on everyone's end. No one has really an advantage over the other. But just keep in mind, if it means kind of mentoring yourself through the process, meaning just kind of saying to yourself, okay, so these are the things that I have to do. This is what's important to my career. These are the changes. And to be honest, like I said earlier, I think during COVID, we've written down these lists. We've given ourselves some, hey, because I received some calls from people in general, in people contacting me. Work is good, but there's some shifts that I want to make. So follow that, be aware of that, reach out to your boss the best way that you feel comfortable, and have a conversation, and maybe even ask what are some ways that they would respond given the situation. These are difficult conversations to have, but necessary. And so maybe you can get your manager and your boss kind of thinking through as well. What do they want to do? How do they approach that? Don't put all the pressure on yourself is really what I'm saying as well too. Take some initiative, but also check with managers and bosses to see what they think would work best.
Yeah, I like that part. Sometimes it helps them think it through as well. So you're not just thinking about it, you're actually opening the door to have that dialogue.
Yes,
I
yep.
like that.
The solutions come. Yep, absolutely. Our creativity has gone up in a lot of families. But at the same time, how can we slow down our thinking to kind of get rid of all of that? I kind of think of that as well too as being something important as well that we could keep our minds on.
Absolutely. We're almost at the end, but I wanted to ask you this one final question. You've talked about the concept of reclaiming our time and rediscovering. So what do you mean by that, that we can all learn from?
I think it's important that we recognize that when we feel in control, we make better decisions. And when we kind of, and oftentimes, whether it's our work or our families, when we feel kind of pushed into, or we have to, the shoulds and the musts, how they kind of cause people to kind of push back. So recognize that there's freedom in knowing that you're in a place where you have choice. You can reflect upon the things that are important to you. So take that back. Take back that freedom. Recognize that, it's important that we take good care of ourselves and of our bodies, and that there's no crime for doing that. It's in fact, we show up better as moms, as dads, when we sort of reclaim the things that are important to us. And we know that even helps us as employees. When we do the things that feed our soul, we come back and we do better work. So it's important that we kind of recognize that when we reclaim our time, we're doing things to kind of feed our soul so that we can pour back into the things and the people that we're most connected to. And so it's really about making sure that we do take breaks, as we zone out, we take care of ourselves, that we picture positive things in our lives, so that we can show up and really be the best people that we can be. So don't be afraid to move in that direction for yourself, and know that this is for you and for your family and for the future.
I love that because it goes back to your analogy that you've said and we've said as well. You put your own mask on first. If you're not well and if you're not feeling good, then how do you bring your best self to your family? How do you bring your best self to work? And one of the things I've shared with the organization is I try and make the mornings mine, right? So the mornings are when I do my reflection and I do my workout, and I try and get a plan for the day, and then it helps me bring my best self today. So I hope that everyone in this period have really actually learned something about themselves and what they need, because there's been
Mhm.
so many ups and downs and uncertainties. I mean, I think I've learned a lot about myself in the last 6 months. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've seen that with your clients or with your practice, but you learn a lot.
You do. When we go through tough times, we do learn a lot, and it's important that we shift the words that we're sharing to ourselves into compassionate, caring words. I always encourage, what's your mantra? What's the mantra for today? What is it that you want to kind of hold on to? Because otherwise, we're kind of shifting, taken all over the place. What is your mantra? What do you want to hold on today? Recognize that your words are important. And I think that people have begun to be okay with putting themselves first. It doesn't mean that you're being, negative. It means that you're actually showing up again for yourselves.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I hate to even stop our conversation. I'm hoping you'll join us again. It's always so good to
So
chat
great.
with you.
Thank you so
Yeah. So
much, Nicole.
yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Carole. It was really wonderful.